For the last 21 years, he's been the majority owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's an investor, an entrepreneur. You see him on the Shark Tank. I would say of all the owners in professional sports, he feels the most like us. Not just the jeans and the T-shirt, but he's outspoken. He yells at referees. He is us as an owner. And I get the great pleasure of interviewing Mark a handful of times every couple of years, and he is now joining us live, where Mark has invested, he told me last week, in a Peloton. So this is the new slip. Have you already done your Peloton ride this morning?
No, not yet today. I'm on the road, so no Peloton today. NBA protocol. Okay. I can only do it at my house.
Okay, so I want to talk about Luka. So I first heard about Luka, and I was skeptical. He was a European player. He was very young. And I'm like, I saw the video. He doesn't look like a great athlete. I mean, I'm sure he'll score. He's highly skilled. And then all of a sudden, about 15 games into his career, LeBron's tweeting him like, we got ourselves a star. When did you know, Mark? Because Dirk took a while to be great. When did you know in your staff, we have an all-time great potential player?
Probably about 5 games in, when everybody who started playing with him loved playing with him, and he was doing things that you never imagined a 19-year-old kid to do. That was just like off the charts. That it was hard to believe that a 10-year veteran could do those things, and Luka was doing them as a rookie. Like everybody has said, you can't speed him up. He plays at his own pace. He thinks 3 steps ahead of everybody. He knows where everybody is on the court. He's just got the ability. And plus, I think, what was uncertain about him being a superstar was how well he would improve during the offseason. And he's gotten better every single year. You can just list off the things that he's done to improve his game. And to me, that's the true measure of a superstar. What can you add to your game? Yeah,
well, exactly. I mean, even LeBron has tweaked his game seemingly every couple years. I could make the argument, Dirk's, someone's going to argue the greatest international player ever. You may have the next great international player. So take my audience, because you're a business guy, you're a global thinker. What did you learn with Dirk that you can now practically use with Luka in marketing, in development, in relationships, all in?
I think it wasn't so much that we learned in terms of business. It was more we learned in terms of personality. Dirk has a heart of gold. He's the first to go to a hospital without the team asking. And Uncle Dirk is showing up in Santa's outfits, and being there with kids and not telling anybody until the kids post something on Instagram. And Luka's a lot the same way. When, we learned that with great athletes who are really great in the community, that have great hearts, you just got to enable them and let them go and let them be themselves. Don't try to say, okay, this is what we need you to do for the team. Just let them do what they do for the community and for people in need. And to me, that's everything. And you saw that with Dirk, and I think Luka saw that with Dirk when they were together, Dirk's last year, that was important, and it became important to Luka.
Mark Cuban joining us. Mark, I've said this before. It's a mystery in sports I don't get, is that I've said if I was an NBA free agent, I could literally go to Dallas. The arena's next to a Ritz-Carlton. I could live there. No state tax. I have a marketing genius as an owner. It's a really nice city for a young man. It's beautiful people, fun, lots to do, great airports everywhere. And yet, you finish second sometimes in free agent pursuits. And I think to myself, you're the kind of guy that's going to get in your head. You're going to think about that. I've argued, is it because it's seen as a football market, or that Cuban's the star? Like, I don't get it. Are you worried about that as you try to land a great player with Luka going forward?
No, not at all. I mean, people talk about that, but they fail to realize that we didn't have cap room for, the first 15 years that I owned the team. And so, we haven't gotten, maybe, the superstar leaving their team, to come play with somebody with us. But we've only really had cap room 4 or 5 years. And so it's not something I'm worried about. I mean, who's not going to want to play with Luka? He makes everybody on the court better. And he's got the personality that just makes playing the game a joy. So it's not something I'm worried about at all.
I've said this before. When you're on Shark Tank, and everybody watches Shark Tank, those are usually what they call B2C businesses. Those are businesses selling to consumers. Now, there's
Right.
there's B2B, business to business, which I'm sure you've got a bunch of those too. But with a business to consumer business, optics matter, aesthetics matter, what it looks like matter, what's the emotion it sends to me. So when I look at the NBA right now, one of the reasons I'm fascinated with Zion is sort of the conflict, the aggressiveness at the rim and dunking. Do you worry at all with the NBA that the three-point shots become so easy? I mean, I'm looking at Luka's numbers, that it's now, you come down on a fast break, Mark, pull up and hit a three. That aesthetically, the game is just all jump shots. Do you think about that? Does it concern you?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. It hasn't got to the point where it concerns me yet, because what's changed is we used to have the big beast, right? You had somebody that was stronger, bigger, like Shaq, and even the Hakeems and the David Robinsons were just beastly, right? They could overpower you. But now in the pick and roll world, you've got guys who can really jump, who are really tall, but aren't really the beat down and beat you up in the paint type guys, because you got to be able to guard some on the perimeter. And so you don't see the big beast down by the paint, by the basket, just dunking on people, except for maybe Boban sometimes. And so, yeah, it sometimes I wish that we had those battles of the bigs down there where they're just banging on each other. But, the other side of the coin is you look to what kids are doing with their game, and everybody's learning to shoot threes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can shoot it, why wouldn't you? I mean, there's what? It used to be that someone shooting 40% in the NBA was a marksman, right? That was just like the sign of an amazing elite shooter. And now there's, people right around 50%. They're shooting not just from the three-point line like we used to, but 5, 10, 15 feet behind it and making them at 35, 40% clips. So you really got to give credit to, player development and kids coming into the game, learning how to shoot.
Yeah. I've heard football coaches say this. If you play in a division with like Tom Brady, then when you draft players that can get to Tom Brady. He affects how you draft. When LeBron came west, did all you guys with the Mavericks sit down and go, okay, we may have to get somebody who can guard LeBron? Does he affect how you think going forward in the West?
Not so much right now. I mean, we used to do that when the Mavs and the Spurs were at the top of the Western Conference. Then you'd say, okay, how are we going to guard Tim Duncan? How are we going to deal? Because they had so many players that were that good. But now, the West is just so good, and teams have so many great players. You can't just pinpoint against one and say, okay, let's just worry about defending him, because, there's so much space on the court, and there's so much skill, like we were just talking about, that it's not ever just about one guy anymore. It's about the whole team. And as a matter of fact, you see that now when you have just one superstar and maybe not as much talent, or somebody got hurt, they're not nearly as effective, because it takes more than one great player to have a great team in the Western Conference.
So listen, you talk about a lot of big issues. Here's a non-sports issue. I see Johnson & Johnson just came out with a vaccine. It's a single shot. And I look at the vaccine and I watch your NBA games, and there's not fans there. You have to be an optimist to be a billionaire. My theory on this is business is so hard. You can't get to where you're at as a cynic. You have to believe there's a solution to stuff. That's just my theory on it. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic we're in as a sports owner? Like, in your mind this morning, how do you feel about where we're going on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely positive. And you're right. You have to see solutions and opportunity. But I look at the Johnson & Johnson to come out, and people say, well, it's only 73% efficacy and it's one shot. And I'm like, that's perfect for kids. Start with high school kids that, my 17-year-old daughter thinks she's invincible, and her peers, and, middle school kids. And, let's get them the Johnson & Johnson shot, because it's easy just to get them one. They're less susceptible in many respects than older Americans are. And that takes care of a lot of the carriers. So with that in mind, I literally had a conversation with our folks, with Cynthia, our CEO, and it was like, okay, let's get to 4,500, in the next couple weeks. And then, we're playing in April and May. It wouldn't be inconceivable, if vaccines are readily available and we have more vaccines than people wanting them, to open the arena back to, 10,000, 15,000 or more.
By the way, you have to have great discipline to be where you're at in life, yet I still see you occasionally chirp at referees. Isn't there a little voice in your head that goes, Mark, you're on camera. Just don't say anything to that referee. He butchered a call. Do you ever have that governor in yourself where you're like, oh, God, I'm yelling. This is going to be on, Sports Center.
Yeah, I do. But, everybody's got something, right? You've been around me and talked to me and other than those 2 hours during an NBA and a Mavs game, not even someone else's game, just a Mavs game, those 2 hours, that's who I am, right? That's where I let out all my stress and I'm screaming and I'm yelling. And the other 22 hours of the day, I'm just calm, cool, and collected. It's just everybody's got something that they use as a stress release, and that's mine.
Mark, absolute pleasure seeing you. Mark Cuban, Shark Tank, Mavericks majority owner. I love talking to you, buddy. Thank you.
Anytime, Colin. It's always a pleasure.